Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Olympic super heavyweight champion Bakhodir Jalolov returns to the pro game victorious, with the Uzbekistan stopping his undermanned opponent Julio Cesar Calimeno of Colombia inside a minute. So I was potentially going to leave this one, but there were some hilarious sort of comments made in the post-fight interview that just I couldn't resist. So I'm covering that, but it really raises a question for me, and we'll get to all this stuff, about Jalolov's next step, where he's at, where they're taking him. Because on the strength of the interview, you would think that he's ready and willing and able to step into contender fights, which I think, let's just pump the brakes, but to the action proper. So Jalolov, who hadn't been in a pro ring for some time, he was the Olympic champion earlier this year at Tokyo. Remembering he was 8-0 coming into this, so most of his work as a professional had been done in 2018, 2019, before he dropped back down to the amateurs to pursue that Olympic dream. But he enters 8-0. He was facing Julio Cesar Calimeno, a cruiserweight who'd come up for this fight. He clearly was overmatched, undermanned, and it showed. There was a big height and reach disparity right from the get-go. Kind of looked a bit like David versus Goliath. Jalolov had a pretty good look for the first 30 seconds, threw a couple of nothing really jabs, and Calimeno a couple of wide sweeping shots, really no success for him. And then Jalolov unfurls the left hand. It lands, Calimeno goes down, he decides not to get up. And it's all she wrote. Inside a minute, so 46 seconds to be exact, the fight is done. Jalolov advances to 9-0. So I was thinking, okay, well, I've got this other fight I'll be covering later in the day, Jared Anderson. I can just package these two together. But then you had the post-fight interview. Radio Raheem, and many of you will know him from YouTube fame, does the interview, immediately declares Bakhodir Jalolov, says he's an immediate contender, and then proceeds to talk about, are you ready for the champions? Are you ready for Usyk, Joshua, Fury, Wilder? And I was flabbergasted. And for the clear reason, if he's 8-0, hasn't really been in a professional ring for some considerable time, and they're feeding him a cruiserweight, he is not an immediate contender. He is not ready for a big-time fight. I mean, this is, taking things well beyond the pale. Because to basically declare him an immediate contender after washing a cruiserweight is laughable. Come on, pump the brakes. But it does raise a proper question about where is Bakhodir Jalolov? How are they going to matchmake him? Because on the strength of where he is right now, it's going to be relatively softly. They're going to bring him along slowly. And the fact that, this wasn't a 12-rounder against someone of note, clearly he's not a contender. But in terms of the comments, and then we'll just get back to that stuff in a second. So he basically said that he was ready for the champs. It doesn't matter who it is. And that he respects the guys like Usyk and Fury, etc., and then he's ready for him. But if you're going to ask him these sorts of questions, of course he's going to talk himself up. Fighters will do that. But in reality, if you're facing a cruiserweight, sort of mid-card on a big event, and it's a 4 or 6 rounder, whatever it was, it's a lot of work to do. And I think we're going to see probably a couple of years now of just building him. And those 6, 8 rounders, building to 10 rounders. And if this is the starting point, we're in the basement with opponents right now, or maybe we've gone to sub-level 1, dropping down to a cruiserweight who was pretty limited in Calimeno. The step up in opposition is going to be slow and gradual. You're not going into some sort of, hey, you're fighting Derek Chisora next or Robert Helenius. There's going to be no fringe contender level fights for some considerable time. But he's promoted by Ludabella, and obviously having an opportunity here, he was farmed out to fight on this Probellum card. If Probellum is going to have regular cards in the Middle East, he could actually find a home there. Bakhodir Jalolov, being from Uzbekistan, he was speaking to the crowd tonight as well. He, I think, based on what we've seen, his background, if there is a lot of cards to come from Probellum in the Middle East, could find a home on a lot of these cards. Potentially as well, he's fought in the United States pretty much all of his pro career until now, under the tutelage of Lou DiBella on different shows, etc. We may see a mix of him sort of bouncing around as they look to build his profile. But DiBella doesn't necessarily have big cards himself right now. I mean, there's the odd one that he's obviously been putting on or had some involvement in. He obviously helped with that Triller card just the other week that Michael Hunter fought Jerry Forrest on. He was involved in promoting that. So there could be different avenues with different broadcasters, different shows. But with Jalolov being the Olympic champion, and obviously this is a sort of highlight reel sort of stoppage, there are other promoters that I'm sure will be willing to work with DiBella to get Jalolov on their cards. So I don't think it's going to be one of these situations where there be no options, that sort of stuff. And maybe eventually it'll lead to something like a co-promotional deal with a big promotional outfit somewhere. Maybe a Top Rank, maybe a Matchroom, PBC. I mean, there could be a home for him. And if they want to build him in the United States, which obviously was the earlier part of his career, I could see it happening. There could be all manner of options open to them. So I think they're just going to sort of ride this sort of, this crest of this Olympic wave for a little while, see where it goes, see where the offer is in terms of, is there, a long-term deal to be had with a bigger promoter with more regular cards, or they could just do individual show by show. But these sorts of performances will do Jalolov's career no harm in terms of building his profile. But let's face it, he's not an immediate contender, as described by Radio Raheem. He's not ready for the big time. He needs to be able to just work through the requisite levels. There is really sort of no rush. He's still mid-20s. He's not sort of 31, 32. He does have some time. And I think they should take it, because clearly he needs to, get those legs under him, build the experience, get through the rounds, throw some more durable opponents in front of him, and let him go to work. Anyway, what'd you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.